Hello everybody and welcome back for some weekly VR news. As always, I am Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. VR gaming in 2025 is starting to heat up again, as we have some really cool new games releasing this week, plus a bunch of other game updates and new announcements. But what we really need to discuss is how the current state of VR is just absolutely crazy. Hardware sales are up, game sales are up, and Meta stating that free-to-play titles are finally viable on their platform. But at the same time, multiple studios have announced layoffs, and there's been a growing concern from other developers about the visibility and total number of sales of their games. So we're going to attempt to get to the bottom of what's actually going on. Now there are of course links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but before we jump in, this video is brought to you by my long-term sponsor, Kiwi Design. If you need any accessories for your VR headsets, go check out Kiwi Design right now. I've tested tons of different Elite straps with battery packs, and the Kiwi H4 Boost is hands down my favorite. It comes in a standard and Halo strap variant, and can deliver up to 3 hours of additional gameplay. So go click the link down in my description, and don't forget to use discount code Mateo311 for 5% off and to help support my channel. Now, normally we start the video off with a check-in, and that's what exactly have I been up to in the VR world, but we're going to bypass that today because I have a lot to go over. Instead, I'm just going to remind you guys that if there's any topics you want me to go over and cover, like I'm going to start doing a lot of VR mods in the future with my new system, let me know what you want to see down in the description, and I'll do my best to get to it. And of course, if you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe. But for now, let's move into this week's new releases. First up, we have Superhot in reverse with Cold VR. Now, some initial reviews are already up for this title, and it's looking pretty mixed. Conceptually, it seems like a nice new take on the Superhot formula, but in practice, the need to constantly keep moving doesn't give you any time to strategize. There's also some complaints about inconsistent level design, which ultimately ends up in some frustration. Now, one of the highlights does seem to be the in-game cutscenes. A lot of people have a lot of positive things to state about that. I've witnessed a bunch of them myself and do think they're high quality. They were really cool. They did add something to the title, but that's not enough to carry the game. Now, personally, I've only played an early beta, so I can't judge the whole title. I thought it showed a lot of promise, but if the level design is inconsistent, yeah, that could ruin the experience. But let's move on to some other new releases. We have a big one for the Meta Quest, and that's Alien Rogue Incursion. This title takes place right around the same time period as Alien Isolation. However, instead of a game of cat and mouse with the xenomorphs, it's much more of an action-oriented title. I previously played through this on the PlayStation VR 2 and thoroughly enjoyed it, even though it did have some rough edges. Now, I'm currently jumping back in for the Quest 3 version, mainly to see how much of a downgrade it actually is, but I still have some really high hopes that this can be a very solid title for Meta Quest 3 owners. Now, also dropping this week is a demo for the on-rails shooter Aim Assault. Aim Assault is attempting to recapture the glory days of arcade shooters, but this time made specifically for VR. Now, I know on-rail shooters are old-fashioned, but it looks like a truly fun experience that does recapture the whole essence of the arcade shooters. I'm also a big fan of the destructible environments, so I'm at least gonna have to give this one a try. Now, another upcoming title with the demo available is Harpagun. This is a fast-paced shooter that doesn't take itself too seriously, and its team features some ex-Superhot developers. The gameplay is all about having fun, as you'll be mowing down tons of alien creatures with both a unique array of weapons at your disposal and the ability to control gravity. So if your preferred method of taking out enemies is yeeting them into space or picking up some large objects and slamming it on top of them, well then this title should definitely satisfy. Now, I do like the overall graphical style here. It looks really cool. So do the graphics and all the different abilities you get, but I know a lot of times we're looking for more substance in VR, and this isn't going to deliver. However, some of the best games are just the ones that are fun. You jump into, have a good time, and then walk away with a smile. So maybe they'll slide right into that category. We'll wait and see. Now, an even bigger game announcement is Sid Meier's Civilization 7 is coming to the Meta Quest 3. So for those of you who were looking for much deeper gameplay, here it is. I'm also really happy to see us getting this game in the spring because the RTS genre is completely dead in VR. I am, however, a little skeptical of the release of this game. Civ 7 just recently released on flat screen, and it's currently one of the worst received releases in the series. It has mixed reviews on Steam, where previous titles are either very positive or overwhelmingly positive, and the current player base is stating that balance is one of the major issues. It doesn't, however, sound like it's beyond redemption, and a few good patches could get this game back on track, but a game that's just okay doesn't suddenly get better because it's in VR, and I'm also once again concerned to see how much of a downgrade will this game require to run on a standalone headset. Now, I definitely don't want to come off as a downer here, I'm just being realistic. I love to see new titles make their way to VR very quickly. That's always very exciting. I'm also happy to see VR branch out. I want to see more RTS games. But like I said, if the game's not great, VR is not going to make it better. So I'm holding on to hope. We still got plenty of time until the spring. There's a good chance that by then they'll have some nice patches in and it'll be a very solid port, which I'll enjoy. Now, last up, before we make it into today's last topic, the multiplayer update for Ancient Dungeon is finally available for the PlayStation VR 2. If you're not familiar with this title, it's an absolutely fantastic dungeon crawler with graphics that are a bit reminiscent of Minecraft, which might not sound like your cup of tea, but I have to say they look really good in VR. This has been an absolutely beloved VR title on multiple different platforms for years now, and the only thing I would have said it was missing was multiplayer, which the game now supports. There's also a slew of additional updates here, like new enemies and a completely reworked map. So if you needed a reason to jump back into this game or never tried it to begin with, now's the time to get started. And let's get into today's main topic, the fact that the current state of VR is just absolutely crazy. You have people out there saying it's not even close to dead, it's better than it's ever been, and then there's a handful of other people saying, nope, sorry, just Quest isn't a viable platform, VR gaming's dead, it's not gonna work, look at all these studios closing. So what's actually going on? Well, it is a bit of both, to be honest. You have games like Batman that saw 1 million people playing it, however, it was released free with the headset, so that kind of skews numbers. But you have some other surprise hits like Into the Radius 2 that's only on PC, and it's made $3 million in revenue in early access. But once again, there's a whole bunch of studios that are laying off people. Fast Travel Games and Dreams took 2 studios and combined them into one, so they had to shrink a bit there. SideQuest just let some people go. So what the hell's going on? Well, when it comes to the current industry, the tech sector's not doing good overall. I mean, across the board. Flat screen gaming, Google, Microsoft, all these companies, they're actually getting hit the worst with the current economics that are going on. I don't want to go into politics or any tariff nonsense, but sectors have been returning. You know, the global pandemic hit us pretty hard in the past, but sectors have returned quite well. One that's not responding well is the tech sector in general. So that's something that needs to be worked out. There's also the new signaling that's coming from Meta, where they're putting a lot more emphasis on mixed reality and wearable hardware. Meta has been continually helping to bolster hype in the VR sector, and if they're going to be doing a lot less of that going forward, the industry is trying to preemptively get ahead of this. Now, additionally, it doesn't matter if we're talking about the flat screen or VR industry. When it comes to creating indie games, it's always been quite fragile. They have to sign on for a multi-year commitment, and no one has that type of pocket change just hanging around. So they have to reach out to somebody and say, hey, listen, here's our title. This is what we want to make. They have to pitch it. They have to get the money, and then they're beholden to these people who are going to rush them or insist on changes, whatever the case may be. So it's always been rough, and there's been plenty of studios that have produced banger titles after banger titles, but eventually just couldn't get any more funding and had to close shop. It's sad, but that's the way it works. So a currently fragile industry is also currently getting hit with a bit more uncertainty. Combine this with things like the leaked memo from Meta that states this is their make it or break it year, and that even though 2024 was their best year ever, they still haven't made a dent in the overall industry. And to finally put things into a bit more perspective, John Carmack, the former CEO of Meta, recently put out a statement talking about how Beat Saber was way more important to the growth of VR than Half-Life Alyx ever was. And I know that statement's going to piss people off, but I also agree with it. Beat Saber is uniquely VR. It gives something that people can't get anywhere else. It is a truly unique, truly VR experience. And as good as Half-Life Alyx was, and it's probably one of the best VR games ever made, if not the best, it has that amazing graphical fidelity, it has awesome physics, it's got a production budget that destroys everyone else. It's still kind of by the numbers. It's a basic first-person shooter in many aspects. It doesn't do anything new. So a lot of people will be like, well, I can get high-quality shooters anywhere, on any platform. Why do I need to do them in VR? But you can't do that with Beat Saber. Beat Saber is uniquely VR, and I think that's what we need, more uniquely VR experiences, something I'm planning on discussing in a future video. Let me know if that sounds good to you guys. But for now, we're done on today's topic. That was the news. If you guys enjoyed it, thumbs up and subscribe. 90% of the people who watch this channel are not subscribed for some reason. I don't get it. Just click, boop, do it, get the announcements, and I'll see you guys on next time.